Hello, everyone, and welcome to Zest with me, Shel Marie, the podcast that'll take you on a journey from the hustle to the harmony, fueling your passion whilst finding your peace. Today, it's an absolute honor to welcome Priyanka Mishra. She is the business head at Fuzia Talent, award-winning strategist, and a visionary leader redefining what it means to scale with soul. Our paths crossed earlier this year when I had the privilege of writing an article which was featured on their website, which was an absolute honor. A platform that amplifies voices and uplifts particularly women across the globe. And I think I saw over 5 million women, which is outstanding. And now I'm thrilled to connect with her again. She is one of the incredible minds behind that movement, and I dedicate this episode to the rise of heart-led leadership, to every man and woman choosing to build with more kindness, lead with empathy, and empower others to grow without losing themselves. May we build with compassion, lead with clarity, and create success that uplifts everyone along the way. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Shel Marie. You won't believe, right before we started recording this podcast. So our daughter, she's like 1 year old, and she's just started. So 1 year, 1 month old, so technically 13 months old, and she's just started taking her few steps independently.
Wow.
So I was already very excited before coming to this podcast, and the way you're filled with energy when you introduce somebody, and I've seen all your other podcasts. I mean, this just doubled up for me, not just because you were speaking about the moment, speaking about the work we do, but I think you're always so full of energy and there's so much of positivity that you exhibit. So I want to start with, bringing that out to you, that,
Wow.
you just with more excitement about this podcast, and thank you for having me.
Wow, that was a huge 360. Thank you so much. And also congratulations. Wow, what a big moment. Just before you come on here, your little beautiful bundle of joy has just taken their first steps. That's an incredible milestone. Thank you. So I think So I think immediately one thing, and I know there's so many layers, like we'll be putting your website in the show notes for people to really explore, because it's absolutely incredible what you're a part of and what you're building. And I know that empowering communities is really at the forefront of what you do. And so with that in mind, like even the opportunity that I was really fortunate to receive from your incredible platform, do you want to share a little more about that? Because I just think it's incredible.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I love talking about Fusion. People sort of have heard this so many times that I feel Fusion as my baby. So never leave an opportunity, about talking about it. So Shel Marie, you have been associated with Fuchsia, and like you said, it's everything that a woman imagines to have in a way, because it's a community, that of course has about 90% women in it. It's not saying any gender, but just because it started as a women community, by a founder who was just imagine 13 years old when she started. And it's such a beautiful.
Say that again. How old?
13 years old.
What?
When yeah.
Wow.
So I mean, when I begin to think about this story, I can't even imagine what I was doing when I was sort of that age.
No.
So what happened was that she was she wrote a book at that age, and she was promoting her book at some book club or a bookshop, and there was a girl younger to her who came to her and said, "I'm your huge fan." And imagine, I can't even begin to imagine writing a book. She wrote it, she was promoting it, and then fellow child who happens to be her fan came to her and said that. And that's when it sparkled that creativity in general can unite people. And so she's a very small writing club in California, and over years from writing, this club started expanding to various creative aspects in the world. So talking about painting and more artistry, dance, music, and so on and so forth.
Wow.
And people in general, and girls who are now women, I believe, because it's years back, uh, together, appreciate each other's work, learn from each other. And so the beauty of Fuchsia is that this started growing into a space where somebody who started as a painter now became a graphic designer. Somebody who started as a poem writer, or a writer in general, happened to be the content writer. So this organic, authentic growth that happened within Fuchsia is only because the community has always been the forefront of what we do. And so this eventually evolved into a business, obviously, which is led by community, which is now a platform where we connect entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, creators, and podcast hosts like yourself with any support that they need from our community, so that they can scale up their business while the women in our community can be economically empowered. So this is the beauty of Fuchsia, and why I love talking about it is the story that it has in its forefront of inspiring women and humans in general. And I think that's the culture of Fuchsia, and why we are sort of always leading from our hearts. We sure are very intelligent humans, but I think we all love taking decisions partially through our mind and our heart. So yeah, that's a little story about what we do and who we are.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. And it really shows the power of, as ourselves, maybe at 13 years old or younger, having the imagination and living in that world of like, oh, I would love to be a singer, I'd love this, I'd love that, but actually creating it and taking action at that age. Wow. that's incredibly inspiring. And I can imagine, well, we don't know for sure. Well, you might know the answer to this, but I can imagine she had a very supportive community around her that fueled her and pushed her to pursue what she imagined in her mind and wanted to create.
Of course. I mean, I think, and especially at such a young age, environment is so crucial, right? So for what I am today, or perhaps what you are today, it is a part of the baseline reason has to be the environment, whether the environment that came in from our parents, or people who are helping us get to the stage of where we are at, their educators, school, friends, partner, whatever. But at that time when you're 13, it has to be the most, your guardians, whosoever they are.
Absolutely. I think it's really powerful what you said, and I think it's really important for us to see both sides of it as well, of like sometimes when we maybe haven't had that most nurturing positive environment, that equally still, I feel, at some point in your life has played a significant role. So whether it was deemed as positive or negative, those key people, teachers, parents, guardians, whoever, always at some point taught us a lesson and a blessing, and it's how we take that and we transmute it into the goodness, and or whether we hold on to it. And I think this is super important, because everything, I believe, even though at the time sometimes is a gift, it's just how we view it, whether we see it as a gift or not.
That's so true. That's so true. I remember, now that you're talking about this, words in general have got so much of importance. And of course, words are a huge part of the environment that we live in. And I remember there was this phase when I was younger and I was at school, when I was not doing very well in terms of studies. And I always have had very supportive parents. But I think there's always that phase, when you don't want to study. And and I remember there was this teacher who I mean, that's my perception, I may be wrong, of course, I'm nobody to judge, but my perception as a child back then was that she used to favor the ones who were leading in school and sort of not pay attention to the ones who were not doing very well. And through her words, I felt insulted quite many times, right? In front of the class, sometimes even on a one-on-one conversation. So felt insulted more than one times. And I can literally count on my fingers the ring today. My heart is skipping while I'm speaking about it, because it's an insult, whether you're a child or an adult, and if you felt it, you felt it.
Absolutely.
There happened to be another teacher who used to write, and whatever marks I used to get out of, in my examination or my homework or whatever grades I used to get, she used to write, "You can do better," and "very fair." And I have no reason why she would write very fair. I think I have always had average handwriting, but always write very fair. And then something just happened that I wanted to study because of that teacher.
But
The
you
one.
see?
Yeah.
Wow.
And she never sort of, paid a lot of attention to me. She used to just write, "You can do better, Priyanka." Like, it was always have my hand. Like, in general, we love hearing our names. At least I love hearing
Yeah.
name, right? So, for example, if I say, "Hey, Shel Marie," so you perhaps, you just constantly love hearing our names.
Yeah.
Write that. Something like, "You can do better, Priyanka, very fair," or "This time you did better than the last time." Some affirmations. And she's just right. And I never had a tendency of looking at what my teacher would have written, because in general, teachers don't write after every homework, right? It's either parent teacher meeting or something like that. And because of her, I don't know, subconsciously, I wanted to do better, and I did. And then eventually I was a scholar at school. I topped various subjects. And of course, there's a long trajectory. But on the topic about environment, it is so essential to have, supporting people around you. And you don't even know who's watching.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that even with that, people will get some memories coming back and insights themselves. And I think it's really important what you said about the perspective, because I was listening, and I know this sounds random, but sometimes I feel like the random things, it's funny how they come in just before conversations like this, and then they seem to tie in. So I was watching a podcast recently about someone saying no child has the same parents, no child lives in the same home, and he was saying all this stuff, and I was like, what? And then the penny dropped, because the parents might have been together for the first child. The parents now might be divorced for the second child. They might have been in a different country. They might be in a different house. They might have been at a different school, have different friends that used to visit the house. And so I think sometimes when we take the words literally, we can't expand our mind to actually what the real wisdom is within it. And even like they said, down to like having the first child, we're probably a little more don't want to break it, like everything's so precious. And then it, like the second, almost not necessarily, but it's like, oh yeah, I kind of get what I'm doing now, so she'll be walking soon. It won't be so much like, "Come on baby, you've got this," like going back to your example today. Of course they're all really beautiful, precious moments, but it's true actually that first child is going to have a very different experience than the second child, the third, the fourth, whatever. Whether grandma lives in the house, whether grandma doesn't live in the house, whether grandma even visits or not visits, or you see her once a year, it all plays, doesn't it, into the big, I guess, it is the personal. I think it is our perception of our childhood. And I'm sure if me and my siblings sat here now, you would think we didn't live in the same house, because we'd probably describe it all very differently.
Yeah. And this is Shel Marie. I mean, I'm sorry to cut you off, but this is exactly the same, perhaps a reel or a video that I watched. It was actually about how, even there's a difference in upbringing, irrespective of it's the same kind of love between parents. But imagine the financial strength of the family will have to change. Either they're growing or they're deteriorating. Imagine if there are even a couple of years of difference between two children, the financial stability or the financial status of that couple, irrespective of everything is constant, will change. Maybe both of them are working. So I mean, it's so true. When you're talking about your siblings, my mother has got a twin sister, and they're like 15 minutes apart, and they've got the most weirdly different identities. They weren't ever an identical twins, but if you meet them, they've got such different kinds of behavior and nature and personality as they're developed. And what my grandma used to tell me, that even if one child has pissed as a baby and the other one hasn't, she would even though change the nappy. So irrespective of how much your parents would do to you to keep things balanced out, there'll always be a difference in how they're bringing it up. It's so true to Bob what you're saying.
Yeah, like this is why I love doing it in this way, because we would have had no idea that this would come out, like it's just naturally come out. And I think these are really important conversations. And thinking about that, I know that a huge part of what you discuss is the power of storytelling to shift narratives. And I think it's definitely not suppressing or pretending or anything like that. But I think sometimes we actually do have the power to see our narratives or our journeys or our stories very differently, because I think the teenager in me or the more confused 20-year-old sees very differently the lessons or the life experiences now. And it's just so interesting because the experience never changed, but it's my perception and my understanding or my mindset on that shifted. And I think this is really empowering, how we can actually go back in a positive way and see it very differently, almost like an observer.
That's so true. I think it's learning. Do you think it's learning? It's because of change our perception. Imagine the guy that we dated that we thought is the best person in the whole world is now perhaps the most, I don't want to say, but perhaps the most shittiest person that you know, only because your perceptions change, right?
Because we grow, like what you said, we grow. And I think it's a beautiful thing because, like we actually have that power to stay stuck in that poor me mentality, or we have the power to say, wow, look where I am right now. And actually, I used to think this, but actually, thank you for this, because now it showed me how much more I've grown and evolved and developed. And I think I think to look back in order to propel us forward is a really positive thing.
And now that you're saying, there's this point that's striking in my head, and you tell me if this happens to you as well. It's an observation about human beings, okay? And as you're speaking. So I think people in general are assessing a situation or creating perception of a situation predominantly based on comparison. Either they're trying to compare their past and present, like you're saying, look where I am today. So we're making a comparison. And if not, then we're making comparisons between the two of us. For example, our neighbors or a colleague at work. Have you sort of seen that? Do you think perceptions are led by comparison?
Well, it's funny that you're mentioning that now, because I do, because it's just funny, all these are coming up. Like I was reading something else and it was saying how actually our version of someone, positive or negative, we always have to be careful of how we are depicting them, because actually who said that actually is the truest version of them? That is our understanding and our perception of them. And actually, who are we to tarnish or whatever them, or not always tarnish, but even make them this incredible person when actually they never said they were that version. And I know, okay, we can't walk around mouths closed, not talk about anyone, like, of course, this is life, but always just be mindful that someone should be able to make their own judgment of someone, and we should, as much as possible, be neutral, because we can really put them on a pedestal or we can really tarnish them. And I think the power of words is very, very influential.
And I think what you're saying is that we should sort of restrict ourselves from getting into that comparison mode. I mean, comparing your past and present makes sense, but comparing yourself to others perhaps is something that you're saying we should avoid, because when you're comparing, you're making a judgment about other, and it's your mind who's sort of depicting the situation. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, and I think it even goes down to the mindset of, like, you could live in the same house and have a very different feeling because of how your inner state is. Because like if we were going through a breakup, if we were lonely, or if we had a housemate, if we were with someone then they left, like the actual building in this case doesn't actually change, but the consistency of the feelings and the thoughts and the emotions towards it do. So actually, is it the building or is it our mindset?
Yeah, I hear you. And I've seen that. I mean, there are those kinds of people that you always feel that their moods are always fluctuating. It's actually perhaps what they're feeling, which is fluctuating, and that's exhibiting in their personality, right?
Absolutely. And I had a really big realization, not recently, but with say for example, an experience, and we both are a part of that experience. So I won't say who it was, but there was an experience that I had that basically two of us were part of it. But when we retold the story together, their version was very different to my version. And I always was like, why is she lying in my mind? Because that's not the truth. And it was only recently when I read something and I said, no, because that was her truth. That was her mind. That was her thoughts, her feelings.
Yeah.
So actually, she's not lying because technically that was her version. That was true to her. That's maybe whether I didn't see the same, and obviously there are circumstances where literally a red car is a red car, like, but generally, yeah, like who are we to say that they're lying or they're exaggerating when we don't see through the eyes of another? We don't know what they truly see. We don't even know if our colors are the same. If anything, our vision looks the same. How do we know?
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that's why we should always stick by our perception. Sure, take influence from others, and then our mind and heart decide what do we want to comprehend. But I think you're right. We should rather, with this conversation, and it's more like a reminder to ourselves, that you should stop making judgments about others. I remember that value education class that we used to have when we were younger, and it used to teach us about not judging others, right? I think that's exactly, as grown-ups, we tend to forget these lessons that our teachers have taught. And imagine now we have to sort of hire a therapist or a coach to sort of times get that reminder to ourselves. We're broken inside, right? So I think if we were more conscious, and I do get it. I mean, I'm not mocking that we forget it.
I'm laughing because there's truth in it. Like, it's ironic, isn't it, that it's almost like we just, instead of listening to the voice, we have to have the voice external to say hello, and then we go, oh yeah, and it's like, I was telling myself that to start with all along, but you didn't listen.
That is so true. That is so true. Yeah.
I know you talk a lot about kind leadership. Would you like to just share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I think so I'll tell you a little background, Shel Marie. So I did my MBA, master's in business administration, and then I took my first job in sales and marketing. It was a predominantly sales role, and at the time it was a media company, internet media company, super in terms of revenue. It was $1 billion organization, but so much of pressure, no psychological safety. So there was when I told my boss that I'm not feeling well, I'm on my periods, I will not go home, and they were like, everybody gets periods, why don't you just sit and relax? My wife gets periods, but she still goes to work. I'm like, the point of comparison, you see, that we're talking, or the kind of pain that your wife goes through, and the kind of pain, it's so relative. Pain is relative in general. And I think those are the things that shaped me when I was looking at people around me at that point in time. And I'm not saying everybody was like that, but a few people who were perhaps negative in shaping the way I'm thinking today was predominantly that whatever I do, and I've always been ambitious. I always want to, grow and scale up in whatever I'm doing. And I do it with all my heart. I'm very clear what I want. So I was like, whatever I do, whether it's a small profile or a part-time job or like a leadership level role, whatever I'm doing, and I've been an entrepreneur before working with Fuzia, I said, whatever I will do, I will make sure that I'm spreading compassion as much as I can, right? I cannot be 100% compassionate and have kindness about everything. And I don't think that one should be super polite about everything. They should be direct. It should be an amalgamation of the leadership aspects that
Absolutely.
you learned about. So it's not that, there's something, somebody's lying to you constantly and you're being kind enough and you're going to that. And
No.
no, I'm not teaching people. I'm take.
And you're not helping that person either, because we're almost, I can't think what the word is, but we're excusing that behavior. And so especially as a role as a leader, you need to be thinking about what you're allowing to kind of happen, and actually how others are perceiving you as a leader. Like, kindness doesn't mean weakness. Sorry to interrupt you. I just felt that was really important what you said.
That's a great point, because a lot of times people actually think that when you're too kind, you have to be like an autocratic leader when you're in growth and in sales. But that just doesn't how it works for my kind of leadership, right? Have to be compassionate towards the people. We should have to try and understand if the results are not coming out, for example, to sit down with them and try to understand the core reason rather than dictating them the way forward.
Yeah.
But it always have to be an amalgamation of other things. And yes, having kindness and compassion at the center of it. But you sure have to have your mind around it. Otherwise, after all, you're working towards scaling whatever you're doing. So it has to be a blend of it. And so when I was at an interview the other day, and they literally made this question out to me, that don't you think kindness is a lot of times perceived as weakness? And initially, when I was in my leadership role, it was early days of my leadership role, I literally felt, Shel Marie, that people would take me as somebody who would let things go very easily. I was not like a stricter leader in the organization, because they would feel I'm too kind and too polite. And so I have to literally, amend my thinking that it has to be, you cannot be polite and kind, otherwise people will start taking advantage of you. So, and I'm warning this for people who are perhaps listening, who are in the recent leadership role, and they've learned from their experiences, of course, not by me saying it, but it is so essential to have an amalgamation and being kindness and supportiveness at the center of it.
Absolutely. And I think it goes back to that. What does that truly mean? Like, what is the real definition of that? Because kindness to someone else might not be the same to another person. So from a leader, like there's kindness to your child, and there's kindness to evolving your business and upscaling it. And these are very two different things. Like, because actually, is kind allowing behaviors that are going to maybe cause issues in the company? Then we have to consider all the different aspects of that kindness, because if we're allowing just to be kind to someone something to slide, that kind of then says that this is an okay behavior to happen in this organization. But is that really kind towards the progression of the business? So I think there's ways we say things, there's ways we approach things, but ultimately the role of a leader is not to be best friends with everyone. It's to always see from the perspective of the highest good of everyone, but ensuring that also there isn't that control and manipulation and forcing people to generate results. Like, how can you do it in a way that still is going back to things that you mentioned, like still honoring, particularly with women, sometimes the cycles of their month, or whether you can just generally tell when someone's not always having the best day, things like that. Like, and it's just being more compassionate and empathetic to the employees around you, because if you ultimately want to build a strong business, you need to build a strong foundation. And if the foundation is crumbling, then you're not going to have a very strong foundation for long. So you need to pour into that foundation, and maybe that is having difficult, uncomfortable conversations in order to get the feedback that you need in order to know how to evolve it and up-level it.
That's actually right. And a part of kindness and leadership for me is about having those uncomfortable conversations, perhaps one-on-one.
Yeah.
Right? And the foundation of it is team. So, for example, you touched upon how women's in general have got cycles, and so they can be bad days. They can be days when they're not feeling up to being productive. So I think the foundation is the support system in those scenarios. If there's a team of about 10 people working alongside, and somebody in this team is not feeling, very comfortable, they still want to continue working for that day, but not feeling comfortable about taking a particular initiative on that day, I think that's when the other team members would take up, right? And they would say, "Oh, why don't you take a back seat, do something that's more comfortable for you? You don't want to come to a meeting. Let me take that meeting for you. You can do something on the system so that, you can relax, sit on your bed and have a great time, sip of coffee, and we'll do something in your pajamas so that you don't have to sort of dress up." That's where the foundation for an organization would be. It will be your team. It will be a go-to person, right? It can also be the leader in the organization. And I mean, there have been instances in our team when we had to sign a contract late in the night and the pre-sales team had, wind it up. And if people came up to me and told me that, "Priyanka, the other one helped me create the contract. I didn't know how to do it because it's on some other software." And she had winded up her work, but she said it's an important contract and it's a go out, and they went inside. And because of that, I was able to achieve my quota. I was able to achieve my, goals. So that's where the power of foundation is crucial. And that can only happen when you sort of offer that kind of environment. And all of this, just like you talked about the women's cycle, also keeps on fluctuating. Like the foundation, some days, you have talked about something on a team call, for instance, which didn't land well with a couple of team members or didn't land well with most of them. Then the environment of the team would shuffle down, right? Yeah. Over time, with reminders, with constant communication rolling out to the team, you have to get back to the foundational level, reminding that we are here for this X objective, and we do it together. So it's also about bringing that fluctuation back. It will always be rhythmic. It will not be a constant routine. It has to be rhythmic. So you as a musician have to sort of make sure that the rhythm is consistent and it's your music to the ears, but not noise that's coming to you.
Very powerful. And I don't know why, but as that came in, and I know that people would probably cringe at this thought, but I think sometimes we can learn a lot from education and things we do for the mindsets and for children. Because why is it that we not every place, but why is it we do these children self-register and pick their smiley face, their okay face, their sad face, so the teacher has an idea of what kind of emotions are happening in the classroom that day? I'm not saying now incorporate this into businesses, but I think we should always think about this. Why do we put so much into the younger generation, which I know are learning, which actually are very, very happy to express even before putting a smiley face. They will tell you if they're not happy before they come to school. So, and I just think there's almost this sometimes when you can feel it or know someone is having a bit of an off day, of everyone almost avoids them, which is probably the absolute opposite to what they should be receiving. Is, can I get you a drink? And I know some people like to have their space, but it's just really interesting. It's almost like a bad energy in the room that everyone goes, ooh, when it just amplifies everything 10 times more, because it's almost like the elephant in the room no one wants to talk about.
But I think from that point, Shel Marie, it's also about protecting yourself. Yeah. For example, if you talked about the feelings in the beginning of, when we were talking this on this podcast. And if imagine if I am myself not having a bad day, I cannot manage my own emotions. I cannot go ahead and offer support to other people. And as adults, I think we're so broken in general. Now we want to protect our energy rather than sort of going ahead and helping others. It's like God help those who help themselves. Yeah. So
put your seatbelt on first.
It's more difficult to manage ourselves in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
But I think the point, if you're feeling well, if you're feeling good enough for that day, it's important to offer support. And if the other person is interested, they sure can take. Otherwise, you can just quietly move on.
Yeah. And that's the thing is people could listen now and be like, well, but what's the answer? There isn't an answer. That's the beauty of these discussions, is it's just raising awareness that actually, why, not saying that there should be, but why is there not an answer? Why is there not a policy or a consideration for things like this? And it is what it is. Like, yeah, and I guess we can't. Every environment is different, so you can't even say like having a quiet space for times when you just want a bit of time to yourself. Like, it just is what it is, and it's the power, or well, not the power, but the leader within that organization that needs to be the one that thinks more creatively about these solutions, I think. And I think, actually, to be in that position and to come from that stance, I think it's a nice role as a leader to really think more creatively, because I think, often we get caught up in the to-do lists and the strategies but actually going back, which I know is a big thing for you, is it's the people, the humans, the hearts, the souls in the organization that essentially are going to be the foundation that's going to create the most success. Yes, we can all data entry, we can all do the meetings, but ultimately, you have to have those real raw conversations with yourself of, actually, are people proud and happy to be working at my organization? And like, even before you came on, you just lit up when we started talking about it, because like you said, it's like my little baby, and that type of energy is what we want to be infusing into all we're creating.
That's right. That's right. And I think we started this conversation about Fuzia. It came through, of course, I have baby biologically, but so, I mean, we started this conversation, Shel Marie, about how, humans are the center of Fuzia. And I think it's not just about we at the leadership position supporting, it's also, the same kind of like the vibe that's exhibited back.
Yeah.
So it's together. And at Fuzia, in this world of job hopping, we have got women who have been associated with us for over a decade.
Wow.
So, and I'm talking about employees that are not even as freelancers. So that's the kind of high retention rate that we have. And I think if I go back and sit down to figure out what is it, what is the reason that people stick with Fuzia, it's predominantly because of the kind of support it is given to women. And women to women, you can talk freely about what you want to talk about the cycle. For example, I was very open about being on periods to my male boss, which of course is in India is considered a little conservative. Like, you would not sort of say that openly. Say I'm not well. You would not say that openly. I've always been honest about things, and I don't want to sugarcoat what is. So and so at Fuzia, you also get that kind of support system with women understanding, okay, no, she's probably on her periods, that's why she's not feeling well. Or there's so many times there are people in our team who don't have a lot of house help. They have to sort of take care of the baby while doing work, and they bring their little ones, 2 years, 3 years old, and do these meetings together. And we don't judge. We, of course, don't judge, because we do understand that sometimes in our society, women has to take a lot more than men in general. And I'm just strictly speaking from a stereotypical standpoint. The world is evolving and all of that. So it all goes back to what people can do as they come together. And I think as humans, Shel Marie, our minds are wired to be together. We as humans cannot thrive standalone. Whether it's your own community or whether you being a part of somebody else's community, it will only thrive if a part of the people that you like, or not even like, if you think that there's neutral energy exhibiting out of it, is when you can come together and make something big out of it.
Beautiful. I know there's so much more we could touch on, but I know even AI is huge, and you have a huge vision for that. But I also want to be mindful of your time, and just I will put everything in the notes anyway. But if there's anything in particular that you would like to share that people could get involved in, or anything that that you would just like people to know, please use this time now to share that.
Oh, thank you. I think ideally 2 things, right? So one is how we were having this conversation. I realized, and I was watching the news the other day, so it was just subconsciously, those thoughts were running when we were speaking, and I realized that words have literally got the power to start a war and end the war.
Yeah.
So choose your words wisely. That's one thing, in case someday, if somebody is sort of having that kind of listenership within yeah, that space. The other thing is that we talked about Fuchsia, we talked about the environment that we have. I also want to create literally a promotional pitch to your listeners and
Yeah.
viewers, that if some of them are supposedly entrepreneurs, they are coaches, they're running a small business. I want to let them know that it's so important to have a tribe supporting you. And at Fuchsia, it can literally be one. If you're burnt out about writing your own content on LinkedIn, or perhaps you're looking for more speaking engagements, or if you're wanting to sort of create your websites, there are organizations like ours, and I'm sure many others, who can support you. So I want to tell this world that it's so important to look out for your tribe, look out for a community, so that you don't burn out. Because if you will burn out in this business, you will one day wind up. And winding up, especially as a coach, is a very negative impact in this world, because as coaches, people are doing such a wonderful job. As solopreneurs, they're trying to make their living. So winding up shouldn't be one of those reasons where it's the base foundation is burning out. So please know, please take help, have support staff for you. It's in a lot of ways economical, and it can really help you scale up. So with this amalgamation intersection of Fuchsia pitch,
No, good.
I would really want to tell the world that don't do it yourself. If you can't take help, if you can't afford help at that time, reach out to your friends. But don't wind up your business because you're exhausted by doing it all alone.
Absolutely, and thank you so much. And that's why you came on today, to celebrate all that you are, all that you're doing. So it's not a pitch. It's, if people don't know, then how can they create and contact incredible women like you? And I think that's why it's beautiful. We have almost not the storytelling, but the human side of us first, where they get to know you and your values and you as a person. Because often I think, when we go on to sell, people they close, they're not as open. Whereas when you just listen and you hear empowering discussions, and you really feel the leader behind what's being created, I believe, by people. And it was no tactic, it's just authentic. So thank you so much. And just before you go, one last thing, it could be anything that just comes to your mind. If someone listening right now would really benefit from hearing something, what would you tell them?
I think I would tell them to concentrate on their own thoughts rather than judging others. Something we discussed today, right? So rather than you creating perspective on what others are thinking about you, or what you think about the other's personality, concentrate on how you can improve your life.
Beautiful. It's been an absolute pleasure, Priyanka. I love all that you're doing, and I'm going to put all the details for everyone to really look in, because I know there's so much on the website. Thank you, really thank you for today.
Thank you, Shel Marie. I loved having this conversation, and you're doing an amazing work, creating so much of awareness about perspectives and mindsets in general. And I'm pretty sure people who are having, a good phase in their life will surely benefit, but people who are perhaps not having so a good phase in their life will be benefited more than you can think of with such authentic conversations. So please continue doing this.
Oh, thank you. That really means the world to me. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much, Shel Marie.